Hi everyone, and welcome to Priority Holder, and today we're doing another Dominaria United draft. So let's fire it up and see what we open. And wow, okay, this is what you want to see. We open Shieldred, pack one, pick one. Now, thus far, it's a card I've only played against, never played with. But I've already seen its power. I mean, it's insanely good. I mean, effectively drains for 2 every single turn, and can just end games on its own. So, very, very happy to see that. And we're still firmly in rare drafting mode. Want to get those rares for constructed. So, very happy to see Anointed Peacekeeper. Um, I'm wondering what uncommon they took. Maybe Chaplain, who knows? But very happily snatch up the Peacekeeper. I mean, it's very strong in draft, so a nice little start we have. And the parade of strong cards continues. We've got Cleaving Skyrider, and that's going to be what we snatch up right now. A lot of strong white cards in this pack. Destroy Evil is also tempting, but yeah, we're going to take the Skyrider as just like the high quality creature and see if we get a good white card when this wheels. Okay, so looking what we have here. Banalish Sleeper is a card I've been very impressed with. It's a very strong, like for those Fleshbag Marauder effects, it's nice being able to not do it sometimes. Okay, so we have a rare in this pack. And I want to play Goblins and Explorer, so we're going to snatch up that Horde Master so we can do that eventually. We're not really missing out on a whole lot from this pack anyway, so snag that for constructed, see what else we get. So I'm going to be definitely looking to play black because I'd love to play Shieldred. So I'll be pushing in that direction since we have such a powerhouse card. And so another Banalish Sleeper makes me happy. I mean, they have a black splash, so they're sort of, you can think of them as black cards in a way. Now, things sort of dry up. I'm going to go ahead and take the Shadow Prophecy. There's some decent things like the Wall Tutoring Defender and some other stuff, but like I said, we sort of pushing our way into black to see if we can make it happen. But white is already looking really promising for us. Wait, didn't get the Shadow Prophecy, took the Drake. Just trying to be disciplined, keep the door open, but we see some decent black cards. Another Shadow Prophecy. We also got the Phyrexian Warhorse and the Writhing Necromass. So tough call between Warhorse and Necromass. Take the Warhorse there and then follow up with another one. It's a card that just doesn't seem that incredible, but is just continually overperformed for me. So not unhappy getting them. Our curve is looking a little clunky, loaded up on the 4s. So we'll have to see if we can remedy that at some point. Just checking out who else is at the table and where the packs are flowing. Sometimes you have a little bit of downtime as the packs sometimes pile up on someone. We get to contemplate where we're going. So keeping the door open for maybe like blue-white tempo, with the flyer, but we're, it looks like we're pushing headlong right into black-white, which I'm not unhappy with. All right, and yeah, so not a whole lot here. Happy to see a red-white land. We already have Skyrider, which has a red splash, so very happy to snatch that up at this pick. A few options. Stall for time, if we were trying to stoke over the blue-white tempo, but it's looking like we can pull off the black-white. There's Urborg Repossession. I don't think it's as great if you're like really splashing for it. We get the 3-2, and we have Meteorite versus Librarian. Take the Meteorite in case there's like something insane we want to splash, and then we get another Meteorite, so that's sort of interesting. And wow, what a gift. We have an Evolved Sleeper as our pack 2 pick 1 rare. So like I said, firmly in rare drafting mode because I'm trying to get those cards for constructed, but it's always nice when it's on color, so we'll definitely be playing that. Sad to see the Phyrexian Missionary go and the Citizen's Arrest, but very happy to see Evolved Sleeper. And we even have the black-white land in that pack. Okay, so some decent cards. Sad to pass up the Resolute Reinforcements, but we're grabbing those rares. Maybe we can do Defiler Triumph sometime. Actually, that'd be sort of hard to do since they don't really enable each other very well. Have to do some shenanigans to make that work. But yeah, already have picked up 5 rares, so trying to lock up that value before even any games are played. Let's see what else we get. So Toxic Abomination, I don't know how well that card performs. It's been decent for me, but the 2 life does matter. So Griffin Protector, Destroy Evil, Sunlit Marsh are the main ones I'm looking at. Destroy Evil is just incredibly strong. Would love the black-white land, but going to take that strong removal spell. It just turns out there's a lot of, each color has like a cost reduced large creature. So Destroy Evil just always has lots of targets. So even like in a low to the ground white deck, they'll probably have a couple of the Phalanx creatures in there. Okay, so per binding, we're going to snatch that up. Yeah, it's just a no questions asked removal spell, gains you some life, just a strong card. And then we see a Citizen's Arrest, so just stay on the removal train right here. Very happy to see that. Snatch that up. So our card quality is extremely high right now, despite the rare drafting. So we've just been blessed to have rares passed to us that are on color. So okay, Blue Defiler. We're losing a Banalish Sleeper, but we already have 2 of them, and we've already seen a few others this pack. I might wheel some. Just a dead pack for us. Nothing we'd like to splash, and nothing we're probably going to play. So in this case, it's just grabbing an uncommon to complete it and then start filling up the vault. So the Juniper Order creature is fine. The Phalanx, happy to see that. And yeah, we're going to take the Charismatic Vanguard. It's fine. It's nothing exciting, but that Anthem ability is like an excellent mana sink. And it can just make it very unprofitable for your opponents to block. So not happy to see that. Yeah, and this is an easy grab the land. We have 1 card that we can splash for green. Yeah, the Root Weaver. It's not super impactful, but it's something to pay attention to. And who knows if we open something crazy in green later on. So yeah, just grabbing up the uncommons at this point. Nothing very useful for us. Another Vanguard. We can go sort of wide with the couple of war horses we have going on. Okay, wow. So we have Jaya, which at this point in time didn't have any copies of, so definitely grabbing that. Jaya, Fiery
Fighting
Negotiator.
everything with fire burns all your bridges.
Just ignore everything else at this point. So Jaya's strong enough to consider splashing. It's really, really tough, the fact that it's double red, though. We have 1 dual. Anyway, so we'll have to see. At this late in the draft, we're in pack 3. It looks unlikely, but we'll have to see. So, gonna rare draft Joda here. Honestly, not missing out on a whole lot. We'd probably play Artillery Blast, but we're not super defensive. Okay, so another on-color rare. This one is not one you usually write home about. You could see me switch over to see how many clerics we have. We actually already have 2 clerics, so trying to figure out what they are. One of them is the Herbalist, and I think the other is like the Peacekeeper. And I realized that Evolved Sleeper, once you start leveling it up, actually picks up the cleric type, so that's great. And so this is a tough one. Really, really want Knight of Dust Shadow, but we need our Hex catcher so we can play some Merfolk. Interesting pack. We can take some medium creatures, or we could take a land with an eye towards possibly getting that Jaya in the deck. Like I said, looks unlikely at this point. So we can take another land. Herbalist. Herbalist is nice because we have like a Cleric Lord, but Phyrexian Rager you just can't go wrong with that. So snatch that up there. So take another Phyrexian Warhorse. We're sort of loaded up at the 4/5s, 4 and above, I should say. So that Warhorse may not make it in there. And yeah, it's looking extremely unlikely for Jaya, though we'd like to try to keep the dream alive. Yeah, and the Shadowrite Priest, we actually have a couple clerics, so it might actually do something for us, especially, when we have like a whammy card like Shieldred to tutor up with it. Oh, you could see me passing up the Phyrexian Rager for another catcher. It'll be worth it when we get to play Merfolk, though. Okay, Splatter Goblin is really good here, especially when you have on-demand sacrifice outlets like Phyrexian Warhorse, just to leverage the -1/-1 until end of turn. You can really make combat difficult for your opponents. So, but yeah, this has been an insane amount of rares. It's not hard to pick up tons of rares in this set because there's so many that just are not supported in draft archetypes like elves, elf lords, merfolk lords, goblin lords, stuff like that. So people often pass those, and you can snatch them up. But it does weaken your draft pool by doing so. So there's definite cost. But yeah, Jaya is not getting there, so go ahead and pull it out. The dream's dead, but we'll play her and construct it at some point. But really happy with the overall card quality. We have another Abomination. It's not amazing, but I mean, we're having a pretty good critical mass of 2-mana, 3-power creatures. So aggressive Sabotage, not ever excited to play it, but could get there. And we get another Root Weaver and an Automatic Librarian. So feeling pretty good about the card quality. And so start rounding out the how many lands to play and how many creatures and stuff, and how many cards. I accidentally add Joda, so thinking about adding the green splash for the Root Weavers, or considering Phyrexian Warhorse. And then it's when I realize that we have a 20 creatures deck. And I'm just sort of shocked, like, wait, how did that happen? And anyway, we end up going for it. So this is a 20 creatures, 3 removal deck. So we'll have to see how it goes. So high curve hand, even though we have like a billion 2-drops, but Anointed Peacekeeper can really do some work. So we'll have to see what happens. And we just have high quality cards as whether we can deploy all of them. So a little worried about Essence Scatter here, but decide just to go for it. And we get to see what they have. So definite Defenders deck. We see multiple Defenders, Shield Wall Sentinel. So end up choosing Shield Wall Sentinel because that's what can fetch Wingmantle Chaplain. So we want to delay that as long as possible. Not only that, but the opponent did not have a black source, and so the black defenders are currently stranded at the moment. So they're going to play the Academy Wall eventually, but they start off with the Scavenger because that can threaten to trade with our 3/3. Now we're not preventing them from casting the Shield Wall; we're just taxing it. So trying to figure out what to do here. We have multiple options, many creatures we could play, and trying to think about how aggro to get at this moment in time. Decide it's actually a reasonable time to kick Knowledge Sleeper. They don't have any black sources, and so I know there's a number of cards stranded in their hand, and I don't want them to be able to trade with our 3/3 Vigilance that can always just keep sending in. Okay, so they find a Vine Wall. Let's see if they find a black source off it. If they do not, they grab an island. So we're very happy to see that, because that means we can just keep charging in with our 3/3 Vigilance. And for us, it's the Anointed Peacekeeper, and for them, it's the Annoying Peacekeeper, because it's locking up that shield wall. Now, what do we play here? Do we play Warhorse Unkicked to try and use our mana? Do we play a 3-mana creature and try and kick Warhorse later? Decide that. Trying to figure out what to do. End up playing Vanguard because that can apply pressure, and if we draw a land, we can make the opponent's blocks difficult. Okay, so the opponent does find a black source, and instead of deploying a wall, they end up holding their trick that can grant temporary, indestructible, and death touch. So they have another Scavenger, which is annoying because it lines up very nicely with our 3 toughness or less creatures. And we know we have precious little removal in the deck. Like, this Prayer of Binding we have is 1 of 3 removal spells. And so, like, how aggro do you get? Do you use it here to get rid of the blocker? But I'm also fearing Wingmantle Chaplain. The opponent could potentially fetch one up next turn. So opt just for the mana efficient play of kicking Warhorse. The more things we get out, the better our Vanguard will be with its pump ability. Okay, so opponent is still holding off on the shield wall, opting to hold up their trick still. Now, however, we have a creature that will just be a thorn in their side. We have the Phyrexian Warhorse, and these are situations where it's good because we want to chip in more damage. For us, it's fairly expendable, but it is a big problem. Like, if it goes unblocked enough times, it'll just kill them. Or if they're a low life total, we can just sacrifice our whole army to it. So sacrifice our smallest creature to Warhorse to get above the damage the Scavenger could deal. They play their combat trick, and you can see me considering it. I decide to fire off Prayer of Binding here because, like I said, Warhorse is just a threat that's going to keep annoying them a lot. And that 3-power creature can actually threaten to kill our stuff, whereas nothing they have now can actually kill our creatures. So it seemed like a worthwhile thing to do, but they play another Vine Wall, pick up a land, and they drop Academy Wall. So they have a lot of defenders. They can't actually kill any of our creatures though, so that's going to allow us just to like smash in for lots of damage. And they have to be careful about Warhorse because we have some tricks up our sleeve with that. And not only that, we have the onboard pump ability from the Vanguard. Now, opponent does have some like really solid blocks here, but they'll be hesitant to throw their Coral Colony in front of anything because we have the onboard pump. Now, the Vine Walls will soak up some damage, so they block in a manner that we're perfectly happy with this because it's not going, we don't need to pump. We'll kill off one of their walls. So we're very happy with this because it will allow us just to keep deploying creatures and put them under pressure. Okay, so pre-combat they hit us with the Coral Colony Mill. And that is a viable win con for the Defenders deck, but we're just going to try and keep eating up their Defenders. So a 5/5 Death Touch is going to be really good, and then another 3-power attacker is going to be great. So we still have the onboard pump ability. Let's see if it's Wingmantle time. Okay, they play the Shield Wall. And I'm totally expecting Wingmantle here. waiting, hoping, wishing, thinking, and they actually grab another coral colony. And so it seems like they must not be on the wingmantle plan. They're on like all in on the colony plan to mill us. And so they end up playing it instead of holding up the activation of the other coral colony. The thing is, they still just don't have great blocks against us. We have a 5/5 death touch that's going to start nailing them. And Warhorse is a pain for them to block because we can pump it up and to crash through any of their creatures. So you can see them pondering how to block because, you know, with our onboard pump, we can just start eating through their walls. And then they won't be able to mill us fast enough. And they're realizing that an unblocked Warhorse could spell their demise. Okay, so opponent is considering it, undoing things, decides to block the Warhorse. And now's the question, you know, do we do something for the Warhorse? Then I realized, like, wait a second, opponent blocked so conservatively that they're just dead. Because we had 9 damage unblocked, and then +1/+1 for each one of them, and that's 12. So opponent played a little too conservatively. They're trying to preserve walls for their coral colonies, and ended up dying. So we'll take those. Aggressive start from the opponent. They have a Cult Conscript. We play our Root Collar, pass. We have a Peacekeeper coming down, and Rager. We will need another white source, but definitely not blocking here because they'll be able to immediately recur the skeleton if they wanted to. They play Picker. So we're trying to figure out what to do. Could just toss Rager out there to just block something. Decide to get a little aggro here, knowing that we have a 3 toughness Vigilance coming down. And wow, they have a strong hand, just chock full of removal. So our taxing, their removal is so efficient that our taxing is not going to do a lot. And so I'm going to just choose one of their more efficient spells. Decide to choose trying to figure out what to choose. End up choosing Cut Down. There's an argument to be made for the Flowstone Infusion also. Cut Down actually cannot kill Peacekeeper. So they attack through, and honestly, the opponent is really threat light right now. They have, you know, tons of removal, and we have tons of creatures. So we're happy to take like a 2-for-1 here. And okay, so they don't have a follow-up threat. So, like I said, we have an endless amount of creatures. They have a lot of removal, but you know, they're gonna run out of it eventually. Now we really want to draw a land, so we're playing Rager here. See if we can find one, and we do. So that's great. So we'll be able to double spell next turn. Let's see if they fire it off. Yeah. So opponent's all in on this Cult Conscript, and honestly, like, it's a good one to be going all in on because it's recursive. So they could do stuff like kill one of our creatures, bring their Conscript back. Okay, so a 5th land and our red source is good. And honestly, like, right now we're losing the race, but with how many creatures we can keep dumping down, I'm realizing we're going to be able to win the race. Abomination hurts here because we have to sacrifice 2 life for that. But the Goblin is nice. And, you know, play the land, play Phalanx next turn. Feeling pretty good. Okay, so opponent does Extinguish the Light. And they gain a bit of life off that, which is not nothing. Okay, so they have tap lands. They can't play Jaya's Inferno. happily not block there. And they pass again. No question. Yeah. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter if we play Phalanx before or after. There's basically all we're doing. So I'm trying to decide, do I play the Phalanx here, knowing that they're just going to Jaya's Inferno it down? Decide just to do that. I mean, we got to get through the removal spells anyway. And we want to just keep racing them. So they can use their whole turn to Jaya's Inferno. We're okay with that. So they take down our creature. They'll knock us to 7. But then we'll knock them to 9. Anyway, we're still killing them faster than they can kill us. And if we ever get that white source, which, there we go. There's the white source. So that's exactly what we're looking for. Because we have just a clean answer to the Cult Conscript. You know, they're hoping to be able to recur that via the removal spells and just endlessly get us. And I think about it here because I don't want to just blast off our precious removal. I'm realizing, like, that's really the only way they can kill us is by just recurring that thing over and over. So, snatched up here and see what they have. They're hovering over our stuff. Do they have another removal spell? Okay, no, so they pass. Destroy Evil might come in handy. Attack them. So opponent appears to have flooded out. Just a threat light removal heavy hand for them, and then resulting in flood. Okay, so they have Enthrall to the Pit with the kicker. That's just not a huge problem though, because I mean they'll ding us for 2 and then sacrifice our creature, but it just doesn't matter that much. It's very expendable. And we're feeling pretty safe and cozy now with 2 instant speed removal spells. There's basically nothing they can do to stop us now. They could buy more time by killing our creature though. So we're flooding out as well, but we still have a lone creature on board. Get him down to 1. And we got there. Next game. But we are just so lucky getting that anointed Peacekeeper in hand. Hopefully that just keeps happening because that's a great way to mess up the opponent. Maybe we can complain about never drawing our 2-mana creatures on time though. We can complain about that a little bit. Opponent's contemplating. Plays a mountain. Root Walla passes. Okay, there's the 2-drop just in time. But we're going to fire off Peacekeeper. Now this is an interesting one. So they have Namada. They have the Sentry. Flowstone Infusion. And I realized it's the correct choice right here is to grab the Librarian, which in a vacuum is weaker than every single card in their hand. But they have tough mana, which we can see, and the Librarian lets them scry too. And so they're attacking, trying to bait us into a block so they can. But we see the combat tricks in their hand, so that's an easy no block right there. So yeah, we're locking up. So now the Librarian costs 5 mana, and everything in their hand is either wrong colors or too expensive. And look at that. We draw Sheoldred. Now the Peacekeeper is already doing a lot of work, like stranding basically every card into their hand. But now it's just time to lay the hammer down. Just fire off Sheoldred. That'll help accelerate our clock and hopefully just shut the door before they can get their mana figured out. So there's the first Sheoldred trigger. That's my first Sheoldred trigger ever right there. Alright, so they pass. So they have a pump spell and the Flowstone Infusion, so they can tangle in combat with like any of our stuff. But because we have Sheoldred, we can literally just camp out it even recovers us some life from our Phyrexian Rager. So what we're gonna do here is just gonna go wide. Like they're just hemorrhaging mana over there. Like sure they can hold up the stuff, but Shieldred will kill them eventually, and we're just gonna wait it out a bit. And the reason I knew to sort of do this is because I had seen people do that to me already with Shieldred. The key thing with Shieldred to pay attention to is, like, first of all, it'll just win the game by itself. You could see it just draining them slowly. But against White, White has 2 removal spells that care about creatures being tapped. So the opponent is not a White deck, but so when you're playing Shieldred against White, it's often correct to not attack with Shieldred, so it stays untapped and it doesn't unlock their if tapped removal spells. Now this is a little different situation because they have combat tricks that were just keeping stranded in their hand. But it's getting to the point now where it's like the point of no return. Yeah, that's it. So works pretty nicely when you draw a bunch of rares and play them. Force from the opponent. Now this is looking a little rough for us. 1 black spell, 3 white ones. Tap land, not helping us. Toxic Abomination is just not even great here because they play a creature. It's like a really lame block. In case they play the Tortoise. Now we'd much prefer to block the Tortoise, so we're definitely not blocking the Elf. Okay, another Abomination. Question is, do we attack? Now, this probably was too aggro of me right here. I have like a very aggro mindset in draft, so thankfully the opponent blocked. With how much life the Abominations lose this, probably should just played one and just should have not attacked right there. Because you could see we're already down to 14. If they have like some sort of punch spell, they could have just tore us apart. So thankfully they didn't really have anything that turn, so decided to just keep going for it. We weren't punished for it for the attack last turn this game, or like yet, but oh, here comes another turtle. Warhorse, which we have 5 mana, but we don't have any white mana, so that is tough. So opponent keeps trading with us. Maybe they have the Urborg cards. They can keep bringing stuff back. We just play an unkicked Warhorse, just hoping to draw planes and start deploying everything else. Opponent finds another color through a possibility, which is a Hammer Hand. Passes to us. And we have Priest. Decided to play it pre-combat since it could be useful to the Warhorse. Attack in. Opponent's thinking about something. Alright, they let it through. Now, with them being green and them finding more lands, it's probably about time for like the huge creatures to start coming down. There's a lot of strong ones at 5 mana. Defiler Instinct, yep, that's a good one. Okay, so they end up not attacking with the Elf. But it's just not going our way. Like, there's nothing we can do against that massive first striker, and we have just so many cards stranded in hand. So we do have removal spells. They're just stranded right now. So the game feels like it's slipping away. Like, the fact that we couldn't do anything about the Defiler there. Alright, so they play an Elfheim Worm. That's not great. Okay, so the opponent opts to not attack there, so that's amazing for us. Like, we're very happy to see that. Now we finally draw planes. Is it too late, though? Trying to figure out what to do. I feel like just Defiler is too much of a problem, at least a potential problem. With like the first strike, there's no way we're blocking through that. So I decide just to Prayer Binding it, not mess around, get a little bit of life gain. and pass the old turn. So the worm's coming in no matter what with the vigilance, you know, trying to figure out what to do. Like, do we just take the hit? Do we double block? End up double blocking here. I'm actually, in retrospect, not sure if that was the right move, but a combat trick completely tears us apart here. So they trade, and we're just hoping nothing crazy comes down, and they pass. Now Warhorse here is pretty clutch because that we're gonna be able to kick that and get a 1 toughness creature, which is gonna hold off their elf. But I'm just wondering, like, with how much mana they have, how are they not playing anything? Unless they have like an instant speed something, so I'll have to see. And there's a Cyclops. Alright, so they send in with the elf, and we're very happy to trade off the 1/1 here. Especially because we know if we are able to somehow remove, well, if we remove the elf, then we can edict away the Cyclops with the sleeper, and the 1 toughness creature's going to, anyway, it's going to enable that. So go ahead and play Banalish Sleeper with the edict mode. That's going to get rid of the Cyclops, keep the Warhorse around, and we're feeling pretty okay about what happened there. For the Samite Healer. So it really felt like all was lost for a while. The opponent just slowed down for a bit. It's definitely not over. And then Herd Migration. That is tough. We just don't have anything that lines up very well with that. So we have another Sleeper. We can kick a Skydiver. Trying to think about what to do. We've just been choked on white mana so long, like we just... It felt like the opponent had sort of a sluggish game themselves, and that if we had been just a little bit faster, might have had them on the ropes, so that this Herd Migration would be little too late. So now I end up playing Banalish Sleeper here. I think that was actually probably a mistake. It's a tough call though, because with the thieving, with the Skydiver or whatever is the horse with the kicker. Probably should have just played that, like hope they attacked with everything and play that with the kicker, kill one of them. You know, so but I was just trying. Anyway, we still have an instant speed creature, but they play Smash to Dust, so it's effectively just a removal spell on Banalish Sleeper. So we just sacrifice it to the Warhorse. That's pretty tough, though. And so it makes it so that we can't even really block one of those really well. So they attack in, and trying to figure out what to do. And I end up no blocking here. I think that was probably not the right thing to do. I think it's better just to block. So they play Rada. And you could see things just didn't quite line up very well there. I think throwing in the Skyrider would have... Anyway, I think I mismanaged it, because now Rada can pump for so much. Like it's a big problem at this point. So we basically have to use the Citizen's Arrest, but then we're locked out of our other white spells. So there's a few different like decision tree paths we could have taken, and I think I'm just fumbling my way towards the least optimal one. I think should have cashed in the Warhorse for one of the tokens, and if, you know, that's assuming we didn't do the other trick we had up our sleeves. So decide to try and block now. The opponent has the Twin Inferno and Pump Spell for the game right there. So the opponent was just biding their time and played it quite nicely for like the whammy finish. So maybe there was nothing we could have done in the end, but it seemed like there might have been some better lines we could have taken. So aggro start from this opponent with the 1/1 haste. Honestly, very happy to see the 1/1 haste try and rumble with this. Doesn't seem like it's gonna be that big a problem. So definitely attacking in. You know, the sleeper is much more valuable to us than their 1/1 haste. So definitely no blocks there. Alright, so the opponent has a follow-up 2-mana creature. Play out our priest and pass. Now the thing is, to get to the last level, the Evolved Sleeper is going to need another black mana. So that'll have to happen eventually. You can see we have all planes in hand. And if we do get to level it up, the priest is going to boost it. Okay, so the opponent decides just to not let us do that. So they use the Flowstone Infusion and end up rummaging. So opponent is mana screwed. We see they pitch a pump spell looking for a land, and they miss. And decide just to attack in here. Because we just have beefier creatures than them, and we know that they're not emptying their hand the way they want to. Okay, so now they have the pump ability on the Viashino active. We could see that they don't want to use it, so they left it latent and then played the Kavu. Now we did draw Shieldred. Fortunately, our black source is tapped. Now trying to decide, do I attack in here? Decide the 3/2 can attack in because we've happily traded with their Kavu. We end up passing here, so if they have like removal spell attack, like we could take a lot of damage, but Shieldred will claw us back into it. Okay, so they find a color we weren't expecting out of them. Now I know the Viashino can pump up for a little extra damage, but I'd rather them just have their mana locked up. Yeah, so they pumped that. We're happy to trade with the picker here. So we take a huge hit right here. And honestly, we're happy to take as many Warhorses as we can get at this point. We've, plenty of mana. We're just going to keep kicking them and just flooding the board. Shieldred starts going to work. It's just a massive blocker. Okay, so they cast Enthrall to the Pit, send in with those, and I'm thinking and realizing the only way we lose this is if we lose too much life and they can just barely sneak by us. So I end up chumping Shieldred here. It took a while to come to that decision, but realized we just need to buffer our life. They can't beat Shieldred with basically how their deck plays. Now I know I talked about tapping Shieldred versus white decks, but decide we need to close the door on them before they can draw out of this sort of mana and color screw they have going on. Not only that, but we have such a strong follow-up with Warhorse. Shieldred will shut the door really fast on the game, so they send in with those. Now it's getting a little sketchy. So the reason I chumped is because I knew the Kavu can just output so much damage, and the Viashino, honestly, its pump ability is not nothing. So opponent is able to do the double Flowstone and then still have mana for the Viashino. So they're going to trade both our creatures and slap us for 3 damage. But things are going poorly for them. Shieldred's just buffering our life total. And this is why sometimes you just need to attack with Shieldred, even if it might open up the door for killing them, because you can see now they're already at 3. they're going to draw their card on their draw step and fall to 1, and they're basically donezo. We have a Warhorse, and that's it. That's why you pick Shieldred if you're presented with the chance. Games, I mean, you've seen it in action already. You know what I'm saying. This is a really great hand. Herbalist could potentially scry us into some nice things. Let's see if the opponent plays. And they decide to pilfer us. You know, honestly, our hand is like pretty great. Like, they're gonna take the Peacekeeper because it's so strong. Yeah, so they take Peacekeeper, but we don't mind. We're on board, and now our Herbalist is gonna start fixing our draws for us. Prayer Binding, please and thank you. So we don't have the 4th land yet, but we have Rager. You know, so it's gonna put the binding in our hand right away, and we'll get to the land eventually. Pilfer just does not seem like a great card in this format. You can see the opponent is just falling behind on board, and they took a card away from us, but it just doesn't matter. Now, Splatter Goblin is annoying because if that dies, it can kill the Herbalist. Okay, so they decide just to Bone Splinters and just do that anyway. So that's a nice little combo. It's like a 2 for 2 there. Well, if you don't count Rager's card. But we draw a Dwarf. Miss our land drop, which is unfortunate. We play a Vivisector and a Blight Pile. It's honestly sort of annoying because just sort of brick walls us. Now our hand is strong. Like, once we draw lands, we'll be golden. Let's see if the opponent can actually do something. Just the Blight Pile doesn't seem to be at its best in their deck. Alright, so they have the Phoenix Chick, so that's going to be able to attack through our defenses. We see like the wall is anti-synergistic with the Phoenix Chick, so it'll never be attacking. So Shieldred there is tough because we don't have the 4th land. But I realize this is actually a pretty strong attack because our little goblin can tangle with any of their things. Opponents think about the blocks. And decide to go ahead and fire off Banalish Sleeper here. The trigger... Okay, yeah, so I fired off without the Edict because it wouldn't quite work the way we would like it to, basically. Because they'd sacrifice the chick, and then we'd minus... Anyway, it just wouldn't work out nicely. So this is an instance where it's much better that Banalish Sleeper is not like Fleshbag Marauder. So the chick is just not killing us very fast. And we still have 2 creatures that can attack through the Blight Pile. Tattered Apparition. It can shell out the damage, but it's a very high cost, and it's not stopping our assault. And we know, we have 2 different life gain spells in hand, one off the Prayer Binding, one Shieldred. So unfortunately, we find one of our few tap lands there. We'd love to play a 4-mana spell, but we're feeling pretty good. Once we get to start slamming our things, it's going to be... The opponent's going to be in big trouble. But they have flyers, and they have mana, so... Decide to pump the Tattered Apparition just once. Trying to see what else. It's like they're leaving Blight Pile activation up or something, or a removal spell. So we're going to continue racing them because if they just don't block with Blight Pile, we're killing them really fast. Alright, so they decide to cash it in. Let's see if they activate. They do activate. That's fine. They fall to 9, and now we hit him with the hammer. Here comes Shieldred. And our hand is pretty stacked right now. Like, we don't even care if Shieldred dies. If it doesn't die, then they're in big trouble. The opponent sends up the flyers. They're trying to frantically race us now because Shieldred's going to increase our clock so nicely. And they decide to cash in the Phoenix and get rid of the Goblin. And we can mine something, but it's just not profitable now. But here's an instance where we just slam the door shut. Use the Destroy Evil. It's a mana efficient card, but Prayer Binding has more targets, so keeping that one behind. So we smack them, they loot, they fall down to 1, and that's basically game again. Shieldred's just good. Next game. I mean, is there a more beautiful hand than 3 Phyrexian Warhorses and a couple lands? I mean, come on. And we keep drawing these clunky hands despite having like a million 2-mana plays, so... Yosha declares war. So they first make an Ornithopter, and... It's frustrating that we have like an extremely slow hand against a red-white deck. Opponent's thinking. I love Song of Night and Day. And they choose the first mode and let us draw 2 cards. The thing is, that's a strong play from them because they can already tell we can't deploy our hand. So they can take more advantage of the 2 cards than us because, you know, I'm forced to play Sorcery Speed Skyrider here because we're having to discard anyway. We would have to discard 2 cards otherwise. So they got more value off the Love Song of Night and Day than us, which is they played it correct. We could see ourselves getting in trouble already because they have the giant temporary Ornithopter, and then they're going to get counters off Love Song, and then they have Griffin Protector, so our hand just unfolded too slowly. We just drew the clunky side of it, and that stupid Abomination is not going to help us right now. Now, we have 2 removal spells. I'm hoping to play a Prayer Binding for the life and for potential like Aura or Combat Trick Blowout. Yeah, so this is what I was hoping for. So they put the counter on Griffin Protector, which is the card we want to remove anyway with Prayer Binding. So we didn't want to do it on our turn because then they can just still put the counters on the other creatures. So this way they waste the counter to some extent. Baird is an issue because he's going to just keep making them an army because they have a bunch of modified things already. Now, fortunately for us, we have Prayer Binding. And we're able to just block, but here's where they could just sort of passively start creating an army. So the land, you know, do we play removal spell and 3-2, or do we kick a Warhorse? I decide that Baird is enough of a problem that we have to do something about it. So opt for that play, but opponent has multiple flyers, and we've seen 2 of our 3 removal spells already, so there's no help there. Strike team is real rough here. Just in the strike team, we'll trade with that. It's sad losing another 2 toughness creature. We'll play a Phyrexian Warhorse. Still holding on for dear life. But if they have like another strike team, you know, we're almost within striking distance, you could say. The opponent is in striking distance of killing us. Dragon Whelp, that's a problem because we can't block that with our Skyrider. Trying to figure out what to do. Decide to start chipping away at their things. Opponent thinks about it. Still thinking. Decides to block. Decides against it. Just lets it through. Okay, well, chipping through a little bit. And we could just keep kicking war horses for a long time. Now, it's taken us more time than them, but we're slowly building up an army. Problem is they have a lot of flyers at this point. Play Coalition War Brute. And the Dragon Whelp, unfortunately, we just don't have any good blocks for that, so that's going to sail right on past our flyer, and they're going to get to do some fire breathing. So they're pumping Dragon Whelp. Get a big hit on us. And yeah, it's just looking tough for us. But I've got to try and play as optimistically as possible. So I decided to send in both war horses because it can just makes the blocking situation difficult for them. Opponent's considering chumping each of them, which we're happy to eat up their creatures. Now they decide for no block, so I do, mentally like, wait, can we kill them? Not quite there. We can deal an extra 6 damage, so we're getting close though. This is what our goal was, to keep chipping away, so we're just going to keep on warhorsing. So at this point I'm like, okay, maybe we can do this. Okay, like, it's not impossible. And opponent decides that they have something to say about that. Cast Heroic Charge, kicked. Now this is my first time going against this spell. So I moved to triple speed here because I didn't realize the kicker gave them trample. I thought it gave them like first strike or something like that. So I agonized through the blocks here, trying to figure out a way to kill them on the crackback, only to just, select them and then promptly die once I select the blockers because they all have trample. That's it. So on to the next one. That one was tough because it felt like we were clawing our way back into it. But opponent had the game winner that they were just navigating to the whole time, so they did an excellent job of that, not blocking too many of our creatures, so they had plenty to deal lethal damage. Starting out with Samite Healer because if that gets through, it's going to start getting us life and scrying, which would be very valuable. Not only that, but we have the Priest in hand, and so if necessary, we can play out our Anthem effect to deter blocking even more. So we're playing against another black-white deck, and yeah, just decided to go for the pre-combat Shadowrite Priest just to start smashing for more damage. Opponent's thinking about things, and we get to attack, which is great. No need for an extra land at this point, though we do have some double black spells, so that could come back to bite us. But just, it didn't seem like a good time to keep a tap land. Though we can profit off the 5 mana for the horse, and just, your decks are always more mana heavy than you'd like. Okay, so the Knowledge Sleeper is really great here. We just don't want them to use their ledger. That can help them get back in this game, so very happily get that out of the way. We can smack them for another 5 damage, scry a land to the bottom, yes please. I think about it, keep it on top for Warhorse, but these draft decks are always more mana heavy than you would like, just because of how clunky the mana bases are, so we'll draw more lands. Ratted Drabic. That is a pain, because our removal spell, we need enough for ward. Not only that, but we just scryed so many black sources to the bottom. We can't cast Shieldred. Decide to cast Phyrexian Rage, or sorry, to keep Phyrexian Rage on top here. It's just going to hopefully help us draw towards the swamp. Play out a Warhorse to rumble with Ratted Drabic. But the Shadowrite Priest is doing work here because it's allowing our Samite Herbalist to keep attacking. So, making sure Ratted Drabic can't recur itself, but with this kind of attack, there's some catch. Yeah, so they have to take out the sword, so gain some life. And eat our Warhorse, which is annoying because that bought them a lot of time, and now we can't attack through it. So, alright, just cast Phyrexian Rage, hope to draw a black source. Preferably untapped at this point. There it is. Okay, so allows us to play our Toxic Abomination, and it sets up for Shieldred. We're just praying they don't hit us with like Pilfer or something right now. So it's a little bit of a stalemate. Opponent was able to stabilize that life gain and the giant Ratted Drabic. Now that thing has Vigilance. Trying to decide, alright, do I guess go for the double block? I mean, a removal spell would be a huge blowout here. But they just have another take up the shield, so that is tough because we lose 2 creatures to gain a bunch more life. And now they have a 5/5. And we still don't have enough mana to pay through the ward ability. But we have Shieldred. So it's time for Shieldred to do her work right here. Now that giant Vigilance Ratted Drabic is no problem. But we know we'll be okay as soon as we get the 6th land, and that Shieldred's going to buffer our life total. Alright, Sengir Connoisseur. Unfortunately, still did not draw a land. The Sengir Connoisseur is a problem because we don't have a way to deal with that. So I'm trying to decide, like, do I attack here with Shieldred, or end up deciding just to deploy as many creatures as possible, because then they have to respect the pumpability of our Vanguard. We're able to level up our Evolved Sleeper, and it's a Cleric, so it's getting boosted by our Shadowrite Priest, and so opponent just charges right on in. I'm trying to decide what to do here. Like, do we block? Because we have a pretty sizable Alpha Strike coming their way. It's tough because they've already shown so many combat tricks. Decide to just go for it again, and this time we successfully trade with Ratted Drabic. It grows the Sengir Connoisseur, but we managed to make it through that. Okay, so here's Warhorse, but it seems like the opponent has overextended because they had to do something. Who knows what the contents of their hand is? But now they're facing a lot of damage, so our removal spell is going to crack this game open right now. We just lock up the Warhorse, and they have no good blocks, and they're going to take a ton of damage, and then on their draw step lose 2 more from Shieldred. So not only that, but we don't really care if Shieldred dies at this point. You could see me thinking about not attacking Shieldred. Like, you have to be very conscious against white decks. But I realized, wait, they're almost dead. We got to send it in. And especially because if they kill Shieldred, we have the Evolved Sleeper, which is just going to take care of us just fine. So the Sengir Connoisseur is going to grow, but opponent's in trouble. Like, they can't even attack us with it right now because they're under such a siege. Griffin Protector, sure. So the opponent, and now is the point where we can just camp. We can just start drawing cards off Sleeper. And I'm about to attempt it and then realize, oh wait, no, we still have the middle one to go through. Yeah, I get confused. Just thought we're already on the last one, but we weren't. We still had to do the middle one first. So this is where the extra black mana would come in handy, but we'll be able to do it next turn. Decide to send in the sleeper. It has Death Touch. That's why it's you can attack here. We want to just keep eating up their creatures. This does make it risky if they do find a removal spell for Shieldred, because we have no good cards left. But they end up just chumping it, so their vampire's huge, but they're in trouble here. So Shieldred triggers again, they fall to 5. And they're going to need something nice. Griffin Protector. Love the card, it's not doing it. And we'd have Destroy Evil, so that makes it basically just academic at this point. We destroy their giant vampire. We attack with everything. 4 damage gets through no matter what. And Shieldred will take them down, and that's it. So on to the next one. Life is good with Shieldred. I wouldn't mind starting every draft with Shieldred, man. It would get boring after a while, but wielding that kind of power is so much fun. So we just play the Herbalist, and they have its natural enemy, which is Salvaged Mana Worker, so we can't attack and get our little scry going, which is very unfortunate. Now, Rager was an option. I decided to play the 3-power creature because it can attack through the Mana Worker. And they scout the wilderness, see what they get. Island, okay, so they're domaining over there. I'm trying to think what to do. Just attack with a 3/2, get some damage in. Play Rager, because we might draw a tap land. No tap land, so just play Swamp. Be able to kick Warhorse next turn and threaten the Vanguard activation. Walking Bulwark, Yavimaya Sojourner. Okay, well that sort of brick walls our plans. Besides, it's a pretty good turn to use Destroy Evil on the Sojourner because that opens up some attacks for us. Yeah, so decide to attack with both. Now with 2 black mana open, we could have the combat trait that gives Death Touch, so decided to attack there in case they were spooked about that and decide not to block. We'll see if Wingmantle Chaplain's in our future. Urborg Restoration, that's pretty tough. Gain some life, and Sojourner's right back at it, and we don't have a lot of removal in this deck. So that is fortunate to see that coming back. So, I mean, it's just a massive blocker, so we can sort of just camp right here. We aren't going wide though. The dwarf pump ability might be able to do something. Except there's Wingmantle. Okay, well, we knew it was probably coming. Trying to figure out what to do. Decide, because Warhorse can threaten a lot of damage, so deciding whether to send that in or not. I decide to send everyone in. I'm not entirely sure if this is like the most advised attack, but I just want to put them under pressure so they just can't camp behind their walls and keep making flyers. Fortunately, they're able to just line up some just great blocks because of this. What I was really want to do is just chip away at their forces, and then okay, so opponents lining up their blocks. And trying to decide between killing the mana worker and the bird. Decide the mana worker's toughness is just going to be more annoying. So, pump it up, but it's just, they eat a couple creatures. We shrink the battlefield a little bit. I felt compelled to keep the planes on top to unlock our removal spell. Here's where things start falling apart though. Shield Wall Sentinel makes a bird, and we're just hoping, please no Wing Mantle, please no Wing Mantle, come on, come on. We'll get our Shield Wall, which is not great, because they can just keep chaining them as many as they have. And it feels like it's slipping away. Honestly, if they didn't have the Sojourner, we'd still be in pretty good shape, but that just blunts our attacks so effectively. And now with the Root Wallet out with like a huge domain, it's not great. So it's like, guess we like nab the Wing Mantle, but honestly, like maybe we should have grabbed the 4/6 there. I don't know. We know they're going to keep getting birds if we leave the Wing Mantle, so it just seemed like a tough situation. Shield Wall, let's see what they grab. Is it our worst nightmare? Okay, so they grab Coral Colony. So they appear to have run out of Wing Mantle Chaplains, but I think the damage has been done though, because now they're just going to start smacking us with the birds. And yeah, this is just a really tough situation here. Flooding out. Thankfully, we have a Warhorse, which can get a little extra value. Now, trying to think how to handle this. Honestly, maybe we should just send him with the Warhorse there. But the Root Wallet is causing us problems now because they can just hold up its activation. So we have a lot of life to work with. But now we have to worry about being milled out by the Coral Colony. They have a lot of defenders in play. That'll get the job done in just a couple turns. Now there's Sheoldred. That's really good. We can't really attack through the Root Wallet and the Sojourner. Even with the Warhorse, we have to sacrifice like all of our creatures. So the thing that Sheoldred does is it protects us from dying to the birds. It does not protect us from dying to mill, though. And we have 18 cards left in our deck, but that's just a handful of activations from them. They have, 5 defenders in play, so... Now, it's gonna come into play later, but they have the little, 0/3 that can animate walls. At this point in time, I was not super familiar playing against it, and I thought it could only animate itself. And that's gonna become, that's gonna be key later on. So the sleeper's nice. Like they'll have to sacrifice either one of their flyers or like a meaningful creature, because the defenders all matter right now as far as milling us. So definitely kick it. We sacrifice one of our puny creatures. The opponent knows the birds are probably not going to get the job done, so they know the milling is getting the job done at this point. So we have 17 cards. At this point, getting a little desperate, trying to send the Warhorses in because they can hopefully tangle with their big creatures. Honestly, maybe we should have just sat back though, because the opponent has just such good blocks. Like we have to sacrifice a million creatures just to even trade with one of them. It's just not great. But part of my goal with this was to... decrease their defender count and hopefully add turns on for us, because Shieldred, you know, can take over given enough time. And just the numbers just don't line up very well, like the massive toughness. They don't even have to activate their root wall. I didn't even bother because we can boost it so huge. So they mill us again. So we fall to 13 cards in deck. Trying to figure out how to navigate this. The problem is now they can just start attacking with the root walla. You know, like, we have to sort of block it because it deals so much damage. Yeah, so wasn't quite sure what to do there. The opponent had us pretty well boxed in. I was trying to figure out a way to fight through it because, you know, they're milling us, so our only way out is to try and kill them. But they just had so many things on board, so many high toughness things. And here is where my mistaken look like the 0/3 defender that can animate walls. Once again, thought it could only like animate itself or something. So I'm thinking here, okay, I gotta chip in a bunch of damage, but not realizing that basically I'm setting myself up to die this turn by doing this. And it's not even that profitable because what I was trying to do is chip down their defender count, but it's just not quite enough pressure to force like bad blocks onto them. Like, they'll lose a little bit, but it's not gonna be that bad for them. And so that, you know, a game losing mistake right here, but like I said, I'm not sure if we really had a way out of it anyway. So I'm thinking here, okay, I can block the root wall attack with the 3/2 and then try and get them. And it could be that I just got a little impatient. So, Geyser off the top, you know, wins the game basically anyway. But here's where I find out about like the walking bulwark. If only they uncorked like a huge card draw spell right there and we just won the game out of nowhere, you know. That would have been nice, but instead I find out right here that walking bulwark can animate any defender at once. And that we're about to get a lot of damage right here. So that's that. So ended up going 6-3. Never unhappy with that. Especially with like just an immense rare draft right here. I mean, how many rares did we draft? Like 10 or 12. But yeah, that's the pack one, pick one Shieldred 20 creatures deck. So yeah, that was really fun. And thank you for watching. And I hope you have a wonderful day.